vibe is massive, it's supernatural. Keep it factual.
What's up, beautiful people? I'm Erin, and this is Erin on Demand. And today we are talking about Instagram trends that are played out, okay? And I'm gonna help you because Instagram is one of those platforms that is just like this. It's like once something is in, something that is out was like in 2 weeks ago. And it's just the platform is constantly changing, trends are constantly coming in and going out, and people are confused. People meaning us, okay? So I want to share with you, I have actually been doing pretty well on Instagram lately. I feel like my engagement has gone way up. I've had some posts go viral. I have been dissecting the crap out of them, as well as dissecting the crap out of people whose posts constantly go viral and seeing why are these posts constantly going viral? What are they doing? Understanding the methodology, less of like the actual what the content is about and more about how the content is formatted and just the overall storytelling techniques being used. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we get into all the great techniques, I want to share with you the stuff that's played out, particularly one type of video. Are you ready for this? It is the get ready with me video, okay? Can we just burn it? Not necessarily burn it, but can we burn it to the way that we know it to be now? Like, I promise you, every time I get on Instagram or TikTok, I see a gorgeous woman in shapewear, underclothes, undergarments, pulling up their pants, putting on a shirt, like spraying perfume, getting dressed, and I'm like, sis, we love it, but it's just like, there has to be another way. There just has to be another way. And it's like the with me content is so trendy and it's so easy and it's never gonna go out of style per se, but you have to now add more elements to it to make it interesting, or else you just kind of get washed away in the sea of all the people who are also doing the same exact type of content. So the reason why that with me content, particularly the get ready with me content, does so well is because it takes you from beginning to end, right? You start off with seemingly no clothes on, and then you end up with a cute outfit on, or you end up with a packed bag, or you take someone through the day with you. However, these types of posts are very low in substance, which is the opposite of what we want to be doing with our content now. Low substance content is no longer a vibe. And when you have low substance content, it is just harder to get people to continue to watch and continue to enjoy and binge your content. So I want to go through some storytelling techniques, one that is tried and true that will help you and be able to stand the test of time, of trends, of Instagram doing like this. It will be able to stay with you forever. And I promise it works so well. This is gonna sound so trivial and so simple because it is. So here's what I want you to do instead. Or not instead, but also just like in addition to the with me content. Because child, I'm gonna still do some with me content. The difference is that I'm going to put my best foot forward in making that content stand apart from other with me content that I see every single day. So here's what you need to do. You need to tell an actual story. And I'm gonna break down exactly how to do that. The first step is to have a beginning, okay? A story is comprised of 3 main parts: a basic story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you will be so surprised at how many posts on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube do not include these 3 main parts. Now, the reason why these are so important is because psychologically, human beings really hate when a story ends and it's unfinished, okay? They hate hearing the beginning of a story, the middle of a story, and not seeing the story through to the end. This is why people can sit for 2 hours and watch a movie, or binge 8 hours worth of a Netflix show, or, constantly be ready at the TV at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays to watch their favorite show. It's because at the end of that show, even though a complete story was told, there was then a cliffhanger or some sort of unfinished parts of the story that keeps them coming back. So The same thing applies. The difference is it can actually be more difficult to tell a complete story in a short amount of time. So with short form content, we only have 1 minute. I mean, now all these platforms have 3 minutes, 10 minutes. Like all the long form platforms are trying to be short form, or the short form are trying to be long form. Everyone's trying to be everything. That's not the point. Short form storytelling can be actually more difficult because you have less time to get through the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then if you have enough energy to tease out so that people can continue to watch over and over and over again for what you have upcoming. So let's go through the 3 parts of the story and what should be included in each. So the first part is the beginning. This is where you're going to do 1, 2, or 3 of these things, okay? It can do any of these things. It can, for one, set a scene. So think about a movie or a TV show. When you first sit down in the movie theater and you start watching the movie, almost always it's like an aerial view of this, city or town that the movie is set in. Then maybe it moves up onto the street. Then you see a shot of the actual house that the family lives in, or the main space that the movie is taking place. Then you go inside the house. Like all of these things are happening usually while the credits are rolling. But it would be a little bit strange if the movie just started immediately with dialogue. So setting the scene is a really important thing in the beginning. And depending on the type of story you're trying to tell with your short form content, this could be a really important thing to set in the beginning. So if you are doing a review of a restaurant, almost always the best first shot is to be of the exterior of the restaurant, or a sign, or the menu, something that allows people to place you and understand where you are. The second thing you can do in the beginning is introduce a character. Now this could be you, this could be somebody else that you're showcasing, this could be the owner of a store that you are profiling in your Instagram reel or your TikTok. This could be a montage of different things, but establishing a character allows for the viewer to connect with a person. It allows them to understand more of the intention or the goal of the video or the content. And the third thing, and probably the most important one out of these, is to set a clear goal or intention for the content. So introducing a character, setting a scene, those 2 things may be more subjective based on what type of content you're creating, but setting a clear goal is always going to be important. And usually our content is focused around ourselves, so most people are familiar with us if it's on our platform, so you don't necessarily need to constantly introduce yourself over and over again. However, with setting a goal, this could be planning my husband's surprise party, here's everything I bought. Like that is setting a very clear goal for one piece of content. Let's move on to the middle. The middle is going to be where you execute on the intention that you set. This is where you are going to share with us like each step, or take us along the journey, or share with us what's going on. If you are doing a surprise birthday party for your husband, how are you planning it, or where is it going to be? What step are you at? Like maybe you have a whole series of it. And it's like, okay, now we're scouting out locations, and you take us on 3 locations. And then at the end you say, next time we're going to start getting some decorations. And then that's teasing out the next one. But the middle is where you're going to execute on that intention. And then the end is where you are going to share the result. Now, this is where you can kind of have fun, because the result doesn't always have to be this predictable result. Beginning, middle, end does make it seem like, okay, we've got the result of the intention that we set out, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes the ending does not pan out the way you want it to. So if you're planning the surprise party and your husband ends up finding out, that's the ending. You don't have to fabricate. And, with social media now, I feel like a lot of times we think that the ending has to just be so predictable and so like glamorized, but it doesn't. Sometimes the unpredictable ending is the story. So we will get into some more storytelling techniques in a later video, but I did want to make sure that this one is like the most foundational storytelling method, okay? And if you can do this with every single piece of content, if you can have a beginning, middle, end, then you are good to go. So I want to go through a couple of my viral posts that I have been studying and just trying to get an understanding of why they went viral, so you can see how I implemented the beginning, middle, and end into these pieces. Okay, so the first piece was a Instagram reel, and I did a come to ballroom dance class with me and my husband. Now, this was a with me piece of content. However, because I was doing something that was a little less traditional, like getting ready, doing my hair, doing my makeup, I do think that this with me content stood out more. I also included an arrow that pointed down. It was like a motion arrow, and I like to think that using stickers or pointing out the subject, especially when there are multiple people seen in the video, this helps introduce the character even more. Also, for people who don't know my husband or who don't know me, this was a way for them to grab their attention so they can be looking at the right people and understanding what was happening. Now, I also did text to speech for this piece of content, and this was, I think, also helpful because it just allowed for the content to be more clear, more concise. I know sometimes for me, I ramble. So having the text to speech had the words on the screen. It allowed for that extra layer of engagement, but it was reinforced with the audio. So I definitely think that was helpful as well. I also did the beginning, middle, and end. The intention, I think I did all three of these. I set an intention because we were at ballroom class. I also set a scene because we were in the ballroom class space. And I also introduced characters, which were me and my husband. So these were also like, it was a really impactful intro. Now, with the middle, I was sharing about some things that the teacher said. Like at the end, I had tied it up more in a thematic way. So it wasn't necessarily a result like, oh, we're, expert dancers now. But it was more of, we apply these tips in our marriage, and we have lots of weddings to go to, so we can't see how we dance on the dance floor. And so that can also tease out more content for me to then follow up and show our dance skills at some of these weddings. So I think this content performed really well for a lot of reasons. I also used a very popular song that is easily identifiable to my target audience. So I think that that also contributed to the post success. Now, the second post that did really well was one of my husband and I riding around a really nice neighborhood, looking at these massive mansions and just visualizing and, just doing what we always do, having conversation, visualizing in the car. Now, I read that you can consider this to be expanding your wealth energy, which basically means you are like trying to help yourself think bigger, think, in a way to attract those things that you want. So I basically started this video with a curiosity, like piquing curiosity. And the way that I did that was me expanding my wealth energy on the screen in text. And wealth and energy are both very buzzy words. So I knew that that would catch attention. But how I furthered that and grabbed the attention even better is by saying, I never really knew what this was called, but I guess it's called expanding your wealth energy. And it's like, wait, you never knew what it's called. While people are seeing these big houses, run by, and it's like, okay, I want to do that. I want to expand my wealth energy. And it's also something very relatable. A lot of people ride around and look at homes that they love and admire. So this post, it didn't really have it wasn't a long piece of content. The ending was more so like, we do this when we're feeling down in the dumps, but it wasn't like now we've purchased this big house. So I don't want you to think that beginning, middle, end means that there has to be some finite conclusion to this. It just means that it needs to be wrapped. It needs to be a complete piece of content. And what happens is a lot of times we get stuck in the beginning where it's like we're just, kind of setting the scene, but then it doesn't really go anywhere. We're setting a goal, but then you don't take the story all the way. or we take it to the middle, but we don't kind of wrap it up at the end. So that is why it's really important to make sure you go through each of these 3 phases of storytelling to make sure that you are completing it and you are keeping your viewer latched on. To wrap this, just a few things that are probably preventing you from telling really good stories in short form. Number 1 is music, overusing music. You are so scared to do some VO, you are so scared to put some text on screen, or you're so worried about your content looking super aesthetic that you have just kind of, I guess, like are hiding behind all of these different elements that you can add into your content, which are there to enhance your content. But at the end of the day, if you are not telling any type of story, then what good is it? Really sit back and think, why do I want to grow on social? What is it about Instagram, or what is it about TikTok or YouTube or Shorts? Why do I want to grow? And if you can write that down, and then look at your content and ask yourself, am I accomplishing that through this? Or have I been doing the same thing for so long and not seeing any growth? How can I introduce something new into my content? So overusing music is definitely a way that you can hide the story. You're hiding behind the music. And a lot of times, even when we are creating content, that voice that we're like, things that are going on in the background can sometimes help tell the story. I know one time I created a reel, me and my husband were both juicing together, and I was gonna put music over it, and then I listened to what we were actually saying, and the audio was so much better than the music. So I just kept the audio. I didn't add any music. And when you are creating content, you have to be able to make out those important moments and be able to spot the story. Even though you may have gone into recording with one specific intention, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that the story is going to have to be told. So just be open-minded. When you get into post-production, if you notice that there's some funny VO in the background, or you did something funny off the cuff, or something crazy happened, be open to pivoting your storyline. So I hope this video was helpful. We are going to dive more into storytelling techniques because this is really important stuff. This is the stuff that is going to get you noticed by brands. This is the stuff that's going to get you those followers. It's going to get your engagement moving in the upward trend. This is the stuff that's going to make a huge impact on your content. And I feel like we hear so many tips, which are also helpful, about, creating this incredible hook, or creating this incredibly aesthetic content, or using the right gear, or all of these things, which are all great tips. But the storytelling and making sure that you go from beginning to middle to end in one piece of content is really the magic behind a lot of these huge creators who are like killing the game. They are not masters necessarily at content creation. They are master storytellers. And I promise you, if you go look at some of the top creators, Tabitha Brown, Christy, Sarah, Keith Lee, Mr. Beast, they have mastered storytelling. So I'm gonna go through some of them in an upcoming video about how to go viral, okay? Things that you need to do based off of content creators who don't necessarily have a niche, who don't necessarily have, the most perfect looking content, but they know how to tell great stories. So if you are interested in that, please give this video a thumbs up and comment interested, and I will make sure to get that video out to you. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.